Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Who Am I? I didn't plan to request another Abigor this year, but you inspired me. This one is actually quite fun. This one is how a war sounds like. Listen to it on a loud volume for a full experience. This one's quite fun. Also, it's sonically painting a war. Enjoy, Mr. Bryan. Golly, how do I get into stuff like this? We're checking out the song Terrorkommando Eligos from the Totschlager album. Let's dive into this and see what's going on with Abigor. It's an interesting mix for black metal. It's very clean. Well, I should say it's very clear. It is not clean. It is gritty. It is dirty, but I can make everything out, so that's kind of cool. Blast beats, man. Bass kicks. Ooh. Back and forth is fun. Fun little cymbal work at the end of that section. Yeah, we do have some orchestral stuff on the outside, right? Layered harshes. Okay, so we did have a little bit of clean vocal there. I thought I just misheard that last time. So we had verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus, bridge? It's just a gnarly vocal. Just random clicks and clacks. Much like the last solo section, just very gritty. Interesting harmonic concepts. Funny enough, the drumming in the last section sounded very electronic to me. Oh dang. What film composer likes to use those? As soon as I heard that loud boom, like it triggered something. I was like, I've heard that sound before. Maybe it's just like a stereotypical trailer sound. That actually might not be inaccurate these days either. But I feel like there's a specific film composer who likes to use that in their soundtrack work. Anyways, yeah, I'm kind of curious if I would have walked away from this one thinking that it was supposed to be a war because, or supposed to sonically embody a war, because it's quite apparent in retrospect. Knowing that this song is designed to sound like a battlefield, yeah, absolutely. Would I have picked up on that without that context, though? I don't know. It seems very clear now, but maybe it wouldn't have been clear without the context. I think about that stuff sometimes. That's why I'm kind of particular about what kind of context I get going into reactions. Because honestly, I can't know how I'm going to react to something, and little things, little details can drastically alter. Like, there might have been a chance that I walked away from this disgusted, not enjoying a bit of it. It's noisy, it's cacophonous, and it would have been a bit more of a negative review here, but I think this is mostly going to be positive, and it is because I understand what it's attempting to do and how it executes on that. Would I have picked up on that without the context? I don't know. There's a chance it would have been a bad reaction, though. So, anyways, just to get this out of the way, not my cup of tea. I appreciate it for what it's doing. I'm cool with listening to this 1 6-minute track. I would not want to listen to a half hour, 45 minute, 60-minute album for this. But, in isolation, especially given that we haven't listened to black metal in a while, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with contrast. I like to change things up. I like to spice things up. And having a really cool black metal track every once in a while, I can get behind that. I can do that. So, what is going on here though? As I mentioned, our structure is verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus, bridge. The bridge is kind of atmospheric, but it does have some solo bits in it, and that just takes us to the outro there. We have an ABC structure thing going on here. Although I guess technically it would be ABC ABD, because the bridge is quite a bit different from the solo section. Even though they both embody similar ideas, which is to provide a little bit of contrast from the verse-chorus idea that we've experienced. I want to break this up, I think, into individual instruments. The guitars are doing a lot of it kind of borders between riffs and chord progressions. Here's the thing, and I feel like I say this every time we get to black metal. They play notes quickly, and some bands will play riffs with this constant barrage of 16th notes, but many times I will hear a series of 4 to 8 picks or strums per note, or sometimes chords. Some black metal guitarists go the extra mile and do the really fast picking across multiple strings, but usually we get our chords and dyads from the two guitars both playing different notes, and I think that's what's happening here. And we get these groupings of 4 to 8 hits per note, which to me feels less like a riff and more like a chord progression. We have these two notes, which creates our dyad or chord, and then this next chord, and then this next chord, and then that next chord. And like, I know a lot of people probably hear the intensity of the music, and trust me, I do, I feel that as well. But when notes stick on the way that they do, and we don't change the pitch too frequently, especially in something like this, where the compression and the distortion sort of washes away the individual picking, and we sort of just get the tone itself, the pitch itself, I hear these less as individual notes and more as a long held out note, which feels very foundational to me, very harmonic information. So if I use the term chord progression or harmonic playing for the guitars in here, you could softly translate that to the riff if you prefer that terminology. I just don't hear riffs too much in this track. But yeah, so a lot of foundational ideas here, a lot of chord progressions is what I'm getting out of the guitar work. And of course, like I mentioned, the two of them, they're playing dyads because one plays one note, one plays a different note, and those two notes create a two-note chord, which is called a dyad. D-I-A-D. I've seen it misspelled so many times, I almost misspelled it back to you. Just trying to get some education in here. Now, aside from this, though, we do have guitar riffs, more proper riffs, moving ideas that we explore in here, but primarily I hear them in the solos. And what I find interesting about the solos is they're just kind of noisy. I would love to see some sheet music on this, and that way I could get some specific notes and even more so specific chords that they might be playing within. I can check out the key that they're playing in, because I can't hear any of that stuff. I don't have perfect pitch. Because I'm kind of curious if they're aiming for anything other than noise. That's what it ends up sounding like to me. It is a bit cacophonous. The notes don't seem to have any sort of correlation to each other. I can't really pick up on any harmonic information. It's just a flurry of notes, almost like, and this isn't what I am suggesting that they're doing, but it's analogous to just sort of hitting a bunch of parts on the string, not really caring, or parts on the neck, not really caring what strings or frets you're playing on, just kind of mashing away up there while just strumming as fast as you can on your right hand. And that's what it kind of feels like to me. Again, I can't find any patterns or rhymes or reason for why the notes are chosen the way they are in either of the solo sections. But there's also the possibility that there isn't any reasoning behind it. Much of the song is rather cacophonous. It is supposed to sonically embody a battlefield. How better to do that in melodic writing than just picking a flurry of notes at random and playing whatever comes to mind regardless of key or chord or any sort of harmonic information. Just whatever comes to mind. And that lack of harmonic information feels chaotic, and it leans into the themes and vibes of the song. Again, maybe that's not what they're doing. I would love to see some sheet music. I can get some more information out of that. But what I hear is just randomness, which, I mean, yeah, battlefields are kind of random. Or at least they can seem that way to an onlooker or even the person in the battlefield. I don't really hear a lot of bass in here, so I can't speak too much about that, but there is drumming. And I'll go to drumming next because I always associate the two of those instruments as the rhythm section, even if rock and metal don't typically utilize the bass in that way. But anyways, the drums here are just absolutely bonkers. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. Those blast beats were ridiculous. The 16th note bass kicks are ridiculous. And at one point, I was just getting tired of the drumming. It's that same type of static, rigid, black metal drumming, high intensity, lots of notes, constant, just like drum machine stuff. That just a jaw on the floor. How is this dude doing this? The raw endurance of it. But it always tends to pull itself into the background. I care about it less and less as songs go on, and it becomes a background noise, like a white noise almost, to a lot of black metal for me. It's interesting from a performative side, but rarely interesting on a compositional side for me. That is until like the back half of this track where the drummer went Super Saiyan and said, you know what? It's not good enough for me just to be this drum machine and stay as constant and consistent as I am with this really tough rhythmic stuff. I'm also going to kick it up a notch, and we're going to get some melodic drumming in here. This dude starts incorporating some fun, like runs down the toms, all over the place on the cymbals. There's some really fun cymbal work all over the place here. It is just kind of bonkers what the drummer decides to do in the final 2.5 or so minutes of this song. And I loved it. I'm a sucker for this, right? This is the part of black metal that I think I really look forward to. And I don't know how common it is in black metal, but there are some drummers out there who feel like they came from a jazz background and somehow skipped everything intermediate and went straight to black metal. And they buffed up their endurance so that they could play constant 16th notes, but then they wanted to bring in their cool jazz stuff in. And they put that on top of like 16th note bass kicks or something. And it just always sounds so cool. It is a type of intensity that continues with the onslaught of attacks, but changes up ideas like accents, timbre, utilizes different parts of the kit with different accent patterns. And through that, we actually get some contrast in the drum work where I can appreciate it both on the performance side, but also on a compositional side, and even past that on a sonic level. It just appeals to my ears in a way that the monotony of traditional black metal just doesn't. And so the drums went from something of, yeah, it's impressive, but I've heard stuff like this before and you're not really changing, to, oh my God, I can't listen to anything else. The drums have my complete and utter attention right now. And that little flip of a switch was phenomenal. That was cool. I don't know if something happened after the first guitar solo and we entered into, oh no, I guess it would have been after the second chorus, right? The back half of the track, because we went through the first two verses and choruses rather quickly. Yeah, about minute like 2.5 or 3 though. I was just like, dude, this drummer just went on another level. And I enjoyed it. I love what the drums are doing there. Oh, going back to the guitars real quick, I forgot about this. Aside from the fast playing, we do have some really wild ideas, like the those really big octave jumps with different directions. One hit the root note and then went up, and the other one hit the root note like an octave or two higher, but then came down, and there's sort of this bouncing back and forth. That was very fun. I will say there's some fun stuff going on in here. It's not your average third wave black metal stuff. Despite utilizing that as a jumping off board. And there's a lot of foundational third wave stuff in here, but they don't exclusively sit within that. And that's what I think I find most impressive about it, and that keeps my attention going. And even continuing on from this, the vocals are very black metal, but they're not produced like typical black metal. They're very clear. I don't know that I could make out words, but I could hear syllables, and it's quite possible it just isn't in English too. We'll look at the lyrics in a little bit. Maybe that's why I couldn't make out words, but I could hear the vocals. I could hear enunciation. It wasn't covered up by the rest of the band. It wasn't compressed so far down that I couldn't make it out anymore. It was rather clear for black metal. And that's not to say that the production overall was clean or anything like that. It is gritty, it is gnarly, it is a filthy production, but it's done so in a high fidelity way where there is a clarity between all the instruments. I think the bass is really the only thing I didn't pick up on, and black metal and hiding the bass. I mean, name a more iconic duo. So, yeah, just maybe it was also me. I was overwhelmed with a lot of other things that I might not have just heard the bass because I never got around to really checking it out. But for what it's worth, I don't remember hearing any bass in here. Um, but yeah, there's a spaciousness to everything, which I think is really impressive given the lack of space in the sound sphere. The song is filling up this whole space. It is a massive tone on the guitars, a massive tone on the vocals, a massive tone on the drums. It's so wild that they still found little slivers of space to outline and cut out each of the instruments to their own little slot while they're still taking up everything. The fact that there's very little overlap there as far as the staging goes is very impressive to me. And I think it's one of the things I like best about this is that it carries that gritty black metal sound. It's still fuzzy and distorted, and there's so many effects on the guitars, but there is a clarity to it all. I don't have a good metaphor for that. Um, what else did oh yeah, there's also the orchestral element to it. I don't know. I've heard something brassy, but I think I also heard like a string section. Not like any individual string, but like a library that kind of encompasses violin, viola, and cello. I did that backwards, whatever. It kind of just brings them all together in octave sets. And those sort of sat on the outside of everything, just creating this warm atmosphere around all the intensity on the metal side. We had a couple sections where we really got to hear those more clearly. Some space, the whole band stops, and you still get to hear the sound resonating outside it before the band punches back in with something. But for the most part, just kind of sits outside of all that. Like I said, I kind of think I heard brass too, tuba maybe, trombone. I don't think I heard like a trumpet. Nothing like super bright, but definitely that metallic sound, lower end stuff that fits in line with the cello work that I heard. But there's so much sound going on here, and there is quite a bit of compression to it that I don't know. I'm just going to kind of call it the orchestration, the orchestral part. And that'll just encompass whatever that is, whether it's strings or brass or both. And I do find that to be really interesting. Now, aside from that, though, which is used a bit sparingly, again, it's just chords that sit on the outside of everything. We also have random sounds, tinks, tanks, metallic clangs, all sorts of stuff. I think some of this does come from the cymbals. They might just be produced in a different way. I don't know. But there are other times when the drums weren't really playing at all in any capacity. Like I'm hearing, there's like a blast beat going on. So there's one hand, and I can hear some, I don't know, hi-hat work with the other hand. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so the drummer has his hands full, but there's still like this other metallic thing going on. So I wonder if it's field recordings, if it's added in post or something like that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they had like some chimes near, oh, this is going to get weird. They have some chimes near the floor, and the guitarists, they're going crazy with their hands or whatever, but they can like run their shoe across it and like kick the chimes to make sounds. I don't know. I like to come up with ways to allow 4 to 5 members, general size of a rock or metal band, to do auxiliary percussion stuff live so that they can record it. I figure most people just use backing tracks nowadays. It's so common, it's not even frowned upon too much anymore. But I think of these things because I'm always thinking about how to do things practically. But anyways, there's all these metallic clinks and clanks around here, which gives it the feeling of being in the battle and not a spectator of the battle. And so you just have these sounds surrounding you going off all over the place. I thought that was a nice little addition. There's also the big boomingness that we got on like every other beat at the beginning of the track that felt like, I don't know, sci-fi world, like big mech stomping, or maybe it's artillery fire for something more modern. I don't know, man. Just a lot of ways to bring in atmosphere into it in sonic ways, but not necessarily musical ways. And I thought that was pretty cool just to incorporate all those sounds into this. Um, I guess that wraps it up. It is, it is a fierce, intense track. It just never really stops or halts. There's a couple of fun parts in it, which feels contrast to the element here, which is, war. It's a battlefield, and then there's like some really fun sections that put a smile on my face. That feels like it should be running against the themes of the song. um, Especially given how much they're trying to make this song feel overwhelming and entirely full of anxiety, animosity. It is just an angry, fast, fierce, relentless track. And then there's parts in it that make you chuckle. So I don't know. Again, it feels kind of what's that word I want? And antithetical. But whatever. Let's hit some lyrics and see what some authorial ideas are. See what they're singing about against all of this wild, chaotic music. Yeah, I mean the lyrics are about war. They're about the Terrorkommando Eligos and the troops that he commands, and driving darkness across the lands, being forces of evil and darkness and trying to take over. It says that this Eligos character, he drives deep down the lance of darkness into the hearts of all that are clean and pure. Those blessed souls, one by one, they're confronted with the terror troops under his command. Yeah, it's violent, it's bloody, and it is about this battle of the clean and the pure, or the light, versus the darkness. And the darkness is trying to kill all of the blessed souls. Mentions that he brings the great coldness of hearts, that there's cannons that rain down thunder and lightning, and that they stand in line and hoist the flag of darkness forward. That they have summoned sinister forces and bonded with demonic aristocracy. Aristocracy? Aristocrats. What? Aristocracy. Like democracy. Why does that word sound so weird to me? Anyways, they bond with demonic people, and the demonic rulers. They create infernal law. They raise it all across the earth, and then they curse the seed of his enemy. So I guess that's a way to try to stop them from reproducing, and so that they can just wipe out this generation and not have to worry about it anymore. And yeah, that's what the battle is. At the end, it says, "Raise the flag for the final battle. Under the banner of Eligos, we march into the night." Yeah, it's just about these troops fighting for Eligos, who is a warrior of darkness, and just spreading this hate and fear across the land. It's black metal. There's demons. There's dark versus light. It's aggressive. It's intense. I mean, what more could you want from a black metal track? It does what the genre does. They just find really cool ways to go about doing it that kind of pulls it up a little bit above their contemporaries and showcases a new side to black metal. I like stuff like this. And if you like stuff like this, and particularly if this is your first time to the channel, make sure you stick around, because next Monday we're starting a theme of, well, what I have jokingly called the good black metal, but it's stuff like this that takes the baseline concept of black metal and pushes it forward, whether that's melodic or atmospheric, experimental, avant-garde, looking at the differing styles of black metal, a little bit more of the progressive elements within that genre. And so we should have a week of some black metal that I'll have some nice things to say about, because I don't always. Stuff like this is a bit of a rare one. So yeah, like I said, maybe you'd want to subscribe to the channel and get notifications when that happens next week. Anyways, Those are my thoughts on Abigor's Terrorkommando Eligos from the Touchschlager album. Let me know what you thought of this. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to what I said. Maybe I said some stuff that was wrong and you'd like to correct me on it. I'm here to learn too. Maybe you just have your own thoughts, opinions, and perspectives about it, completely devoid of anything I said. Put all that stuff down there in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu where you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of jazzy drumming, but not in jazz. Again, if you watched my last video on Talk, I don't know if we're actually going to find some stuff that I think is really jazz drumming, but it'll be fun to explore the drum ideas we hear this week, because I think they're all going to be a little bit outside the norm for the channel. Anyways, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.